Hi, my name is Chet Lovegren. I'm the founder of The Sales Doctor, where we work with teams to help diagnose their revenue problems and provide them with a prescriptive approach to the revenue health. The worst advice that I probably ever got was you don't need to stretch before a workout.
You don't need to stretch before a workout. Who told you that line of bunk? When did you get that, man?
I had like a real old school high school football coach. I believe he had a grandfather who served in World War I and a father who served in World War II. He was very old by the time, he was coaching us. And he said, when they were in the military, they just wake up and go, 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 go. You guys are out here acting like you need to stretch and hum and ha. So he was like, his whole thing was if any of you think you have to be more athletically fit than someone on the front line fighting Nazis, then you're all delusional. And those guys didn't need to stretch. And I still think about that to this day, especially as I get older. It's like, if I legitimately don't stretch a little bit, one, if I stretch, I already know that I can lift more when I'm lifting. I already know my stride is longer when I'm running. And if you look at Tom Brady, his whole method is plyometrics, or is it plyometrics? I forget, but it's all about stretching. Right. Yeah, so it's like his whole workout routine is just stretching. So I always just thought that was really funny because, I would still stretch. I would just make sure that I stretched in my 9th period class before we went to the football field, before we went to the gym, and then the locker rooms changed and then went out to the football field because he hated seeing people stretch and he wouldn't stretch. So yeah, that's the worst advice.
That is bad advice. Well, that's almost as bad as the advice that you never have to listen to your own calls, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pivoting into bad advice, right? Because I remember when I was early in my career, and we're going to talk today about mastering call reviews, but I remember hearing, you know what? Hey, your manager's got this. They'll listen to calls for you. And I'll tell you that that is hooey. What do you think, Chad? Is that hooey, or is that okay? Can only my manager listen to calls, or SE?
So, all right, I'm going to use a sports analogy. So sorry to everyone that hates it when salespeople use sports analogies, but to me, one of the big differences I think between a Hall of Fame quarterback like Peyton Manning and someone who just floats around the league now in his life as a backup, Marcus Mariota, is like film review. Are you the guy that lets your coaches look at everything and you show up to, your Tuesday morning meeting and you sit in the quarterback's room with the quarterback's coach, the other quarterbacks, and the offensive coordinator comes in and they're kind of showing you what they noticed about your opponent or about what you did last week that could be better? Or are you watching film in your own time? Peyton Manning's notorious for how much film of his he watched without having to do it as part of his job. And I think the best sellers are the same way. So are you someone who waits until your boss wants to walk through a discovery call or a cold call review with you, or wants to pick that apart, or if it's part of the regular cadence? Or are you an individual that wants to go see what you did and you're okay with listening to your own voice and seeing the parts where you messed up and figuring out, well, how can I better that part? It's kind of funny. I'd been in sales leadership for about 3 years before I went out on my own full time at the beginning of 2023. And now I'm back in a position where I had been teaching about discovery for a long time. So I had a lot of like hypothetical practice from what worked for me and how I packaged it, right? Because I did it really well for years, packaged it up and showed others how to do it. But it had been 3 years since I really had like my own ownership one-on-one silently at a discovery call. And I remember hopping in a discovery call, probably my first one for the specific thing in my business that I was working on at that time. And I just got completely wrecked. And I was like, this is so weird how when you're like out of practice. And I had to go listen to it. And it was awful to listen to it. And I hated it. But as an individual taking that ownership, it's like, this is the thing you have to do to get better. And I was a solopreneur, so I wasn't going to have anybody else go and listen to my call and tell me, Chet, this is what you need to do. So when we look at it from the individualistic point of view, that's the kind of ownership you need to take. Now, if you flip that around, speaking of sales leaders for a second, obviously you can see the importance of why you need to do it. Could you imagine if head coaches, offensive coordinators, quarterbacks, coaches never watched game film of who they were playing? Like, that's why being a head coach is so stressful when you work 80 hours a week, because you probably spend 30 hours a week just watching film. It would be it's maniacal to think that there are sales leaders who actually call review is always like the last thing on someone's list. And I know I've seen it. It's like the last thing. It's like, well, I got my board deck that I have to work on. I have my weekly sales meeting. We're doing some product launch training. I got to go meet with marketing. I got to meet with CS. And it's like, well, what about your AE's discovery calls? When are you going to listen to those? Well, if I get around to them. And it's always the very last thing that we look at. Or we find the one sliver of time we have set aside for that individual person, which is our one-on-one. And then we go, let's review your discovery call and your one-on-one, which is a total, Family Feud buzzer sound right there. Insert. Yeah. That is awful.
That's good. Well, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about first about the rep review and their own stuff, because I think that's super important, right? I want to be more Peyton Manning than Marcus Mariota. I want to make the Hall of Fame. I don't want to just be a journeyman. So let's talk about that. So first of all, how much time a week should I allot to listening to calls? If I'm doing calls and I'm a full-time AE, how much time?
I would say if you can't review yourself 2 to 3 calls a week, why would your manager?
Ooh, 2. Okay, so 2 to 3 calls. End to end?
Say that again?
End to end? I should listen to beginning to end, or just the parts that I'm working on? Like this week, I should listen to discovery. This week, yeah. Okay.
Yep, beginning to end. And then, it goes above and beyond that too as an AE. What are your responsibilities? Are you full cycle? Does that mean you're calling your own appointments as well? Okay, then review. It's much faster to review 3 cold calls than it is 3 discovery calls. Where are you struggling? Are you struggling getting appointments? Okay, then go listen to 5 cold calls. Maybe listen to 1 discovery call, or listen to one of the great cold calls you had that turned into an appointment. Then go listen to that discovery call all the way through. You know what I mean? Listen, Phil. The other thing is, like, there are so many call transcription tools that can provide you with the same amount of insights you're probably going to get listening to it. Sometimes I still like to listen to a whole call all the way through. And if everybody, it's all about time, right? Time. Jim Rohn says that. How can one person make $1,000 a month and one person make $2,000 a month? Same socioeconomic background, same education, same job, same company. And I always thought, well, he must have more time, but it's not about time. He said it's about value. And part of that interpretation to me is, in his talk, I think he meant value, like the value the person can provide. That's why they're making more money. But to me, I always also looked at that as the value of what they're getting out of their time. So when you want to listen to calls, there are things that'll let you play back at 2 times speed. That's fine. If you're just listening for listening and trying to pick up on little tiny, relational behaviors and on-screen cues, there are tons of inexpensive call tools. I don't know if I can plug softwares, but
sure,
I'm not an affiliate or anything. But
mention a couple. Sure.
I use everybody's probably heard of Gong, but not everybody has the budget for that. But there's one called Read.ai that plugs right in on Zoom, and it's like really inexpensive, and it gives you like, here's your prospect sentiment, here's their level of engagement. It reads how much time they're like looking at the screen versus down versus to the off screen. It reads like the words that they're using when they respond to questions you're asking. So you can at least get a holistic view of, like, here's a high level view. And then it even like carves out the pieces where it's like, here was their low engagement, or here's the questions you asked. Here's how much time you talked. Here was their response to those questions. Here are the 3 main things that came up. So there are so many tools that can help expedite that. But even if you want to still, and I still recommend doing it manually, but if you want to listen to all 3 manually, please listen to 1 manually every week from front to back. But if you want to like speed that up, you can even speed that up. Listen to it at 1.5, 2 times speed. Just depends on, obviously, if I listen to myself back at 2 times speed, as you can already tell, I wouldn't be able to hear a damn thing. So I have to go at 1.5 speed. But there are just so many little tiny things that people can do to make the most effort out of their time. And all those little tiny things feel like so much effort for some reason that people just sign off on it and they never do it. And they'd rather go sit on their couch at 3:00 and watch PTI on SportsCenter instead of, hunkering down, listening to a discovery call in your ear while you're working on some email templates or something, or some admin work that you're finishing up. There's plenty of ways you can multitask without multitasking, because I don't believe in actual multitasking. There's a whole thing behind that, but there's a lot of ways that you can get more value out of your time and create value for yourself, because you're going to learn a lot by listening to your calls. You're going to learn a ton.
Absolutely. I find that I like to read the transcript first when I'm reviewing calls because I'm
Hmm.
looking for the pieces that are really valuable. To your point about value, right? I want to find the meat. I don't want to find the fluffy stuff. I want to find the good stuff. And that way I can look for like long periods of monologue. I can look for long periods of silence. I can look for different things. And then I want to listen to it then the next time without the video on. Even though everybody's on Zoom now, I want to hear the words that they said, and then I'll do it just the opposite. So sometimes I'll get I'll take one call and I'll rip that apart 3 different ways to give me some opportunity there. And when I've been in sales enablement, sometimes I'll do that with those 3 calls because a lot of times we'll pick up things that otherwise we wouldn't have picked up if we pick up one of those things. It could just be a simple word and you see people cringe. And if you didn't have the video on, you wouldn't know that because the word doesn't sound that bad, but some people just recoil from different words. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, and that's interesting you bring that up because there's a public speaker coach, guru, aficionado, whatever you want to call him, named let me look it up real
Vin
quick.
Zhang.
Yes,
I know Vin.
Yeah,
Vin's a buddy of mine. Yeah.
Vin Zhang. And he said, if you want to get better at sales calls, I saw this little clip on TikTok. He's like, when you record a call, the first time, just read it back. See all the little tiny things that you're saying, see how it looks on paper. Second time, just listen to it back. No video, no text, just listen to yourself. Third time, just watch it back on mute and see how the interactions are going. And you might notice something like you just said, where somebody might go like that, like this, and you're like, oh, but you might not have caught it because you were listening to what you were saying, but now you're seeing your prospect react. And this is something that he recommended for people that wanted to get better at like public speaking and understanding how they interact visually, audibly, what they're saying on paper when you're actually reading it. And it's something I started doing a lot last year, at least about once a week. I do that with a podcast. I found that really helpful when I was guesting, and like, let's see how I'm looking on camera. Let's see how I sound. Let's read what I'm actually saying. Does it make sense? Is it cohesive? I'm still getting used to the making sense and cohesive, but as you can tell, visually I'm there. Audibly, I'm really there, but I just need to get my content a little bit better. And that's the thing I think we all struggle with, making sure we don't have the word salad that can be all the passionate ideas spurring up in our head on every question we get asked as podcasters, But yeah, sure. I love Vin. And I think that something like that, it's just, and I would have never noticed that unless I was just browsing around on TikTok in my free time instead of binge watching another season of Breaking Bad all over again on Netflix. You know what I mean? Instead of binge watching Breaking Bad for the 5th time, scrolling around on TikTok on public speaking hashtags, I found Vin and I'm like, this is great. Now I follow him and I listen to a lot of his advice, and that's a tiny little thing, right? That's a very tiny little thing that if you've never heard it before, you would never know to do it. But once you start doing it, you see the change.
Yeah. And I would say with that, public speaking is a great thing to study for salespeople because that's really what you're doing. I believe that every sales call is a sales performance. And we have an opportunity here to really perform at our best. And if you believe that it's performance, well, then doggone it, you better review, you better practice, you better bust it apart, and you better find ways to do that. So let's talk about our managers, though. Let's talk about sales leaders and how they can do a better job here. It starts, I believe, with scheduling it. You have to put the time on your calendar. So how much time do you find that sales leaders need to schedule per day or per week for, let's say, a team of 8?
Yeah, the sales leaders are really going to hate this answer because it's all about more meetings. There is a big difference between coaching and training. And I know I say that and people go, duh, Chet, of course we know. But I wouldn't say that if I didn't still see it bleed over all the time. Training is delegation. Do this, do that. Coaching is direction. Why did we go this way? Why did we do it this way? Do you see how this way might have worked better? And unfortunately, those overlap all the time. And that's just human nature. That's okay. We can, at least once we recognize it, we can solve it. But number 2, both of those things also tend to happen a lot in your weekly one-on-ones. And the ironic thing is that your weekly one-on-one has no place for either of those. Your weekly one-on-one is support. Those are the 3 pillars, I think, that develop someone: training, coaching, and support. And the support is you supporting the person, basically managing the relationship between the company and them, the person who's trying to justify the ROI of sitting in the seat. And will sometimes some delegation and direction bleed into that? a little bit, but it's more focused and centered around strategy. Hey, let's take a look at your pipeline. Okay, man, Phil's being a real pain in the butt to close. He's ghosting us. What happened? Well, I would encourage you, go look at your discovery call. Don't go look at the discovery call now, but go look at the discovery call and think about how we tried to understand the different roles. If we're thinking about medic, is Phil our economic buyer or is he our champion? And if he's only our champion, did we get a good job of getting other people on an email chain moving forward? Let's review those things. And so there's a little bit of coaching in there. There's a little bit of delegation because I'm telling someone what to go do. I'm kind of coaching them up because now they're thinking, oh yeah, man, I need to remember that email chain line that we have to make sure we have all the stakeholders on email moving forward. But let's think about how we can right now, let's think about how we get Phil back. Okay. If he's just your champion and you need access to your economic buyer, let's think about how we do that. Right. If he is your economic buyer and he's just stalling, let's think about, I'm going to ask you questions and we're going to try to figure out why you think that is. And we're going to come up with a way to best approach it. Yeah, there's a little coaching there because I'm going to learn some tactics and some things I'm going to do later on, but we're strategizing together because you need this deal to close. I need this deal to close. So I can't stand when people do cold call review or when they do skill training on one-on-ones, and I see it happen all the time, and that is no place for it. So my recommended coaching cadence for any team, whether you're leading SDRs or AEs or full cycle sellers or whatever that might be, is you're obviously going to have your weekly one-on-one. That can be 30 minutes to an hour, whatever you want. But then everybody needs to have a specific one-on-one coaching call with you for at least 30 minutes. And that can be discovery call review. That can be cold call review. That can be reviewing a demo you did with an SC, right? And looking through the highlights and how they carried their part of the demo. Or maybe they do demo without SCs. That could be another thing. But that needs to be each person getting one 30-minute block of time from you each week. And then there needs to be a group coaching call where we kind of focus on a thing as a whole, like deal postmortem. Hey, does someone want to go through this deal they lost? And we can kind of coach it up in real time together and get everybody's input, not specifically for the person that messed up and lost the deal, but so all of us can have awareness and see how we would handle this differently in a certain situation, right? So you got those calls. And then I also recommend you need a weekly skill training or at least a bi-weekly skill training call. And this isn't how to update this thing in Salesforce or HubSpot. It's not how to sell this product better. It's a thing that if Phil took it to any other company as a salesperson, it would work there too. And that can be tough to find programming and fill that weekly. So I get that maybe that's not a realistic expectation, but it should at least be bi-weekly. And the thing is, it's actually, when you look at it, you can fill a lot of time pretty quickly. If you want to do cold calling, then maybe you just talk about the first 30 seconds of a cold call in your first training. And then 2 weeks later, you talk about how to handle cold call objections. And then 2 weeks later, you talk about how to, tie down the appointment. You just created a month and a half worth of skill training right there for your team in regards to cold calling. And it's probably better that way because you're not trying to stretch everything into one 1 hour call. You can do 30 minutes of training and then 20 minutes of conversation. Everybody's got 10 minutes left to go get a bio break and a cup of coffee. So I realize I'm saying this, and most sales leaders have their weekly sales meeting, which is also mostly just team training and memo updates, which is just garbage. And then a weekly one-on-one and maybe like a bi-weekly coaching call or a group coaching call. But I think you need to up that. You need to have your weekly one-on-one, weekly one-on-one coaching call, weekly group coaching call, and then either a weekly or a bi-weekly skill training, something that they can take anywhere they go if they work in sales, or even if you're in customer success and you're listening to this or whatever, right? In their specific task role, they can take that anywhere. It's not just specific to the company that they're working at.
Awesome. So a few more meetings, but certainly more effective. So what kind of lift do you see on that, Chet? Yeah, I mean, I know this is what you do, man. So what kind of lift are we seeing when people actually follow that advice?
Well, I'll tell you that one of the best lifts, especially in a work from home environment, is you weed out the bottom people that don't really want to be there. Because do you think the person that's just there to collect a paycheck and put in the bare minimum sales activities, and if I get a discovery call from the SDRs, I'll my calendar, great. I'm not really going to like prospect to find anything extra. I'm not going to look through my closed lost accounts. I'm not going to, try to do any referral engagement or networking, or even take my own individual time to go to a local trade event where I might meet people in my industry and my ICP and buyer persona. you get those people out pretty quick, because the last thing they want to do, aside from attending a weekly sales meeting and their weekly one-on-one, is have to go to a weekly skill training, a weekly one-on-one coaching call. That's why most people stay around forever. Not in this economy, right, with the layoffs, but I know great reps that are getting laid off too. So I don't think anybody's safe personally. But in a traditional job setting, the reason that people can, fake it so long is because there is a lack of coaching. If people actually got in the trenches and coached their people the way that they should, instead of hiding behind their screens and spreadsheets, we would know a lot faster who we have, and they would be feeling a lot more pressure a lot faster to either get better or leave. That's why I always say, when you think about the 3 types of employees and you think about the departers, which is one of the classifications of employees, we got to either coach them up or coach them out, because they're just going to linger. They're the bottom 20%. We tend to put the most effort there, which we shouldn't. Pareto principle. When you think about those efforts, we should really be focusing on our other subsets of employees, team members, whatever you want to call them. Some people hate when I say employees. They're like, that's so 80s. And I'm like, this was just how I think of it, right? Team members. Sure. Let's make it sound nice and fluffy. But yeah, that's one of the upticks, is that, you see a quick change in the employee morale. If you're in second line leadership and you start having your frontline managers do this, you also see a quick change in their morale as well. How interested are they in this job, or are they really just collecting a check to make spreadsheets and send you updates on dashboards all day long and, basically be an elevated seller and just manage deals alongside people? So I think from an employee perspective, you see a drastic change in that engagement. From a performance perspective, I was sharing this with a deck with one of our channel partners the other day. We see about an 8x return on ROI within 6 months when people work with us, and we kind of go through the process of changing their leadership program a little bit so that the structure is in place and they have a coaching structure. So, it's a pretty good number for me. The numbers vary in terms of production though. Some people, they see it work really well. Some people, they see it work. I've never seen it not work for anybody. I've never seen it be negative though. If that's a, comforting. I've never seen it like totally defeat performance. If anything, I've seen people go, well, there's too many meetings, I don't like this, and they quit. And it's like, okay. And then you bring someone else in, or I work fractionally for 3 months, and it's like, wow, we actually hit quota this quarter. Imagine that. You get somebody in here that wants to coach people, and that's what happens. And people want to be coached. Good people that inherently want to do good want to be coached. They want to know how to do the job better. It would be crazy to think that someone you're paying a salary to sell doesn't want to hit or exceed their quota. They just don't want to have to do all the dumb crap outside of that, and they don't want to feel like they don't know what they're doing. People typically don't make cold calls because they're afraid of it. They're afraid of it because they don't know how to do it right. They're scared about getting an objection. People have anxiety. Not interested. Oh shit, what do I say? They actually picked up the phone. You know what I mean? But no, they picked up the phone, but I don't know what to say. I'm going to lose out on this prospect. FOMO. Very easy. Well, of course you're not interested, Phil. If you were, you would have called me first. Hey, give me 30 seconds of your time. If you don't like what I have to say, I'll hang up on myself. Sound fair? It's that easy. And if they say no, bye, and they hang up, you're in the same spot as you were before. But people don't have that level of confidence because nobody's shown them that. Nobody's coached them up on that. Nobody's listened to them fail because they don't get coaching. So inherently, people want to do better. You just have to help. You have to do better to help them do better. Most leaders don't want to take that onus.
Yeah, I think, and many leaders don't know how to take that onus, which is where hopefully this is a helpful conversation for folks, right? Just the coaching cadence, I think, is super helpful for folks. So with that, how do you stay sharp, Chet? What are you reading or listening to? You mentioned you go to TikTok and listen to public speaking tips, which I think is really cool. How else are you staying sharp, man?
Oh man, I love TikTok. I love TikTok hashtags. It's one of the best SEOs on the planet. I feel like I can learn anything from TikTok. I used to read a lot of books. I think I've read every relevant book for me basically at this point, being 10 years in, like every book around sales and leadership, and lots of them about business and just personal habit building and all these things, right? We could name off the top 20 laundry list. And I think the more I try to go out and read other or new books, I realize how crappy the material is. So I'm kind of like, all right, I know my like top 20 that like all encompassing books. Like I read 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And I was like, okay, but I kind of feel like he just wrote it because he's Peter Thiel. Like it wasn't as great as like 48 Laws of Power. You know what I mean? Like it's not revolutionary. It's a book. So I don't actually read as much as I used to. I actually did a thing last quarter where I was reading a book a week and reviewing it. I think when I went through that, I didn't get burned out because I enjoyed the information. But I was just like, wow, I just read like, 30 books and most of them were just crap. It was like one that I actually enjoyed, and that's not a good ROI on my time,
Yeah.
So yeah, actually a lot of TikTok looking for niche content there. And then I have what I call a personal advisory board. So I have just same way a company would have people, I guess you could call them mentors, but I feel like they take a more elevated role in my life. Literally people that I can call or text at any time, and I don't feel obligated to send them a box of cookies or a DoorDash gift card or an Amazon gift card or something for their time. They just inherently want to see me do good. Some of those people, like my buddy Kevin Hooks, he's called the Equity Geek. He's very focused on DEI. I think I talk to Kevin twice a year, but every time I talk to him, it's for an hour at a time. And it's a little bit of catch up, a little bit about our families, and then just me sharing my heart, him saying like, here's the way I think about that. People like Dalton Van Hatcher at Hatchet Ventures, I'd probably call him once a month for at least 45 minutes. And then there are like the sporadic 15-minute calls where I'm like, hey, I'm setting up an LLC for the first time. What do I do? Like I was doing a year ago. I was like, what do I do? And he's like, oh, go talk to my guy. Gets me connected. Boom, done. Right. So that's one of the ways that I stay sharp, because now if anybody ever needs to set up an LLC, I know a person to send them to. I feel like I have more value. Right. So in terms of staying sharp, I think leveraging that personal advisory board, they're all people that I respect that have more experience than me, using a lot of TikTok. And then I would say, the third thing is having kids, man. Having kids will really keep you on your toes. It'll kind of put you in a position where it's like you might not be able to tell, but I got like 2 hours of sleep last night. But I've gotten to this position now as a dad where I'm like, when you have kids, you're either awake or you're asleep. There is no I'm tired. There is no I have energy. You're either awake or you're tired. You're either awake and you're doing work, or you're with your kids, or you're going to the gym, or you're doing something fun with the family or taxes or whatever, or you're asleep and you're dreaming about whatever you might, flying through the sky and, throwing lightsabers around, which is mostly what my dreams are comprised of. So I think that's the other thing, is having kids will keep you staying pretty sharp, but don't just go have a kid to stay sharp. Like raising a human is really tough. But I will say, if you have kids, like maybe you need to change your outlook if you feel tired all the time, because you need to recognize that you're either awake or you're asleep. That's how I look at having kids.
Yeah, so your advice is have kids. I got it. All right, so yeah. I heard that. That's what I heard. So I got kids too, so that's all I heard. No, I know. I'm just teasing you, right? So no, that's funny, but good stuff. So Chet, if there was, I want you to think about this, and then I want you to tell me where people can find you first of all. But what is the last piece of advice you give people if they want to get started? So think about that, and then tell me, where can people find more of you so that they can get more of your insight and more of your action?
Yeah, if people want to follow me, LinkedIn is a great place. In my features section, I got access to my weekly newsletter. Listen, I stood up my newsletter like a year ago before it was cool to have a newsletter. I promise you, it's not the same old garbage that you're reading everywhere else. It's literally like, how can I educate sales and business? Like essentially like more focused on the business side, but how can I educate people in less than 2 minutes a week? Like at the very least, do you have 2 minutes? I know word counts and what they amount to in terms of read time. None of my newsletters are more than, I think, the longest was 3 minutes, but most of them we aim for 2.5 minutes at most. If you don't have 2.5 minutes, then you shouldn't even be worried about other things, because you got to find that time, right? Put that value in there. And so that, like, we have stuff like that. We have downloadable resources, my website, list of podcasts I've been on, all that stuff. So you can go to LinkedIn, or you can just go to website, www.thesalesdocrx.com. You said biggest takeaway. That was your,
How did they get started? How did they get
started? You just need to take time to make time. If you're listening to this, I don't know when this goes out, or if this is live or how it works.
This is live, baby.
It's live. Well, okay. So it's what's today? Thursday, right? Or sorry, today's Friday. Wow, I'm losing a day. I feel like there's more days in the week. So it's Friday. All right. So, clock out at 3:00 today. Go sit down for like 2 hours and write out a new schedule for coaching. Take that time to make that time, because you won't do it. You won't just start coaching people. You won't do it. And you don't need a fancy coaching call sheet. If you want one, message me. I'll send you the most. People ask me for resources all the time, and I send them like the most basic Google sheet. And they're like, what is this? And I'm like, well, what do you want? It doesn't need to look pretty. It just needs to get the job done. Like, I literally, a lot of my templates are the most basic thing you can think about. And then I think it's so funny when I see like LinkedIn gurus and they have like a $50 one-on-one coaching template, and I click on it and I'm like, okay, so you got like some colors and some nice pretty fonts in your logo in the corner, but it's like, what does this accomplish that a rudimentary basic piece of junk like mine doesn't? It's still like the same format, the same outline. If you need to make it look pretty, make it look pretty on your own time. But you need a template, sure, I can give you something, but don't worry about having that, right? Everybody wants to make everything perfect before they launch it. Listen, that's what product managers and developers do, and we're not those people. We're not CTOs. So like, we are salespeople. We're rugged. We are very rudimentary. We learn as we go. We fly the plane and build it at the same time. How many sales leaders love saying that phrase? So why do you need everything to be perfect before you can go do it? Schedule the time, take the time to make the time, and then just walk into the call with a Word doc and 2 calls that you want to listen to, or better yet, put it on them. Phil, I want you to send me 1 call you were proud of this week and 1 call you thought you could do better. And that's a great way to see, wow, Phil thinks this could be better. This is like a great call. Is Phil just being modest? Is Phil trying to, where's the poop, Phil? You know what I mean? Where's the bad call? Like, it's like Dwight Schrute. My greatest weaknesses is that I care too much. I'm on time too often, like that kind of thing. Is your weakest link actually your greatest strength? So that's, there are tons of little tiny things that you can do operationally, but get them to send you some calls. Just put the time on the calendar, walk in and start doing it. And you may find that just writing notes out on a Google page works great. You may want a basic rudimentary scorecard. You may want to know how to make that scorecard. Then you might want to make it look prettier. Then you might want to create a whole Google structure in your Google file system to organize and share that with people, and then integrate Gong or Read.ai or whatever you're doing. You can build. It doesn't just stop. You can add and create new versions of things, but just take the time to actually, take the time to make the time, and then just go start doing it, and then see what, I want to add this here. Oh, okay, I want to do this here. And then you'll start seeing what you like, because when you first start doing it, it's going to look completely different than when you do it, 6 months from now. My setup here, my video setup, I added little things over time, and I took away some things. I really liked that this had XLR connective abilities, but I noticed that the XLR would create a delay. So I said, I'm just going to go in USB. So I created this thing that I thought I needed, used it for a while, and I took it away. Then I had a camera that I thought I needed, said, oh, this wasn't that great, and I upgraded it, right? I changed and I molded and did different things. And so I think that's really important, is that you just got to take the time to make the time, and then you just got to start doing it, and then do V1 and then do V2 and then V3 and then V4. And you'll know what works. You'll see how it's received. You'll see the performance, and you'll see the time that it actually takes to get it done, and you'll find ways to add value in that time. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the results.
Yeah, I think so too. I love your stuff there, Chet. That's really helpful. I'm just going to repeat 2 things that you said there. And that is, first of all, think about your weekly cadence, your one-on-ones, your coaching, your group coaching. Everyone's input needs to be gotten. And then don't forget about your weekly or bi-weekly skill training. And then just get started and improve from there. Take the time to make the time. So lots of great stuff. Chet, friends, if you want to get more from Chet Lovegren, go to thesalesdocrx.com or find Chet Lovegren on LinkedIn. He'll be happy to share some stuff there. He's got a super actionable newsletter, 3 minutes or less. He promises 2.5. I would say let's say 3, just so if people read slow, they get that. Check him out. Thanks so much, Chet. This was great, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. It was a blast. Thank you, everybody. And feel free to connect whenever you want to. If not, if you thought this was hot garbage, I respect that too. Everybody's got opinions, and I like feedback. So give me the smoke too if you didn't like what I had to say. But yeah, thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.